So what's the difference between a butter bean and a lima bean, and which one should you be growing? We need to talk about that. Well, it really just depends on where you live and how you was raised. Now here in the South, we call them butter beans, and to our friends up north, you call them lima beans, but they're really just the same thing. It's just according to how you was raised and where you was raised and what you was taught what they were. Well, for the sake of argument, let's just say there's two types of butter beans or lima beans. There's the bush type and there's the climbing type. Now the bush type is primarily what's grown here in the South, and they're going to get about knee high, and they're going to be good for about 2 to 3 pickings at the most, and they're going to be done. Now a lot of people down here, when butter beans come in, butter beans can be kind of aggravating to harvest. It's hot, and you have to bend over to get those bush butter beans, and they'll pull up the vine, put them underneath the shade tree and pick them off, and they just get one picking off of them. If you leave them in the ground and you're careful, you can get 2 to 3 harvestings off the bush butter beans, and they're done. You move on. The other one is climbing or running butter bean or lima bean. So the advantages of bush butter beans is that they're pretty short season. They're over with. You can pull them up and you can move on to something else. The disadvantage is you have to lean over to pick them, and they can get, hurt that old back a little bit and cause you some problems getting over and getting back up if you get a little age on you like I do. And that's pretty much the advantage and disadvantage of the bush beans. Now, the climbing or the running butter beans also has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is you don't have to lean over. You can pick them off these trellises here, and I normally like to trellis mine about 6 foot high. And you can stand up and you can pick them. They also last all season long. Now they're going to quit producing in the middle of the hot, dry summer, but if you fertilize them and you treat them with insecticide and fungicide, they're going to put back on. You're going to make a great fall crop, and you can harvest them all the way to frost. So you can get a spring harvest or summer harvest and a fall harvest off the same plant and setup. That's an advantage. Disadvantage is it does tie up that space all growing season, and also you do have to trellis, so you got more cost involved, you got more work involved. I like to use a T-post and a Hortonova netting here, so you got that cost and work to put into them. Also, I always put them on drip tape because we're talking about a long season plant here that's going to last through the summertime, so I got to keep them alive and healthy, and I need to keep them watered. So let's talk about some different varieties of lima beans or butter beans. So the first one we're going to talk about is forked hook bush bean or bush lima. Now this one here is forked hooks are normally bigger. See there, that's bigger than what we call a regular butter bean or lima bean here. And this is a bush type. It's going to be about 75 days to maturity. You're going to pick it once, twice, 3 times at the most, and it's over with. And these forked hooks are a staple here in the South. Everybody loves them, but they are a bigger type butter bean. And this is a bush. Next one we're going to talk about, which is the staple butter bean everybody talks about, Henderson bush lima bean. Or us in the South, we just call them simple butter beans. If somebody just says the word butter bean, this is exactly what they're talking about. Lay them out right here. You see they get a bit smaller than fork hooks are. So that is a regular old butter bean here. Bush type, there again, you're going to pick it probably once, 2, 3 times at the most, and it's over with. Now let's move on to some running type. This right here is a new one we got called King of the Garden Lima pole bean, or King of the Garden butter bean as we would call it here in the South. Now this is a running or a trellising type. Now this one right here, if you plant it early in the springtime, you're going to grow this one all the way till frost if you take care of it. Now this is a bigger type bean, similar to the fork hook, maybe just a little bit bigger. So this is a good size one right here, and this is a green one, not a speckled one. We have some that are speckled, I'll show you in just a minute, but this is a regular old green, big old butter bean here. And that one's going to last you all the way to frost, and you're going to get several pickings or harvesting off it. Yes. Now, I was over in Alabama a few weeks ago, and a fellow walked up and gave me some of these butter beans, and I was enthused to get them, to say the least. This is a regular type butter bean, but it's a speckled butter bean, and it is a running butter bean, and I have never seen that before. So I was excited to get my hands on them, to come back and to plant them. You see there, it's a smaller butter bean, but it's speckled, and it is a running type, which is the ones I prefer to grow. Now, these are the varieties that we carry: the Fort Hook, the Henderson bush bean, and this new one, the King of the Garden, is a new one for us. And this speckled butter bean, the small one here that we're trialing this year. So these are the varieties we carry, minus this new speckled one. We also got one that we're out of stock on now. It's called the Christmas lima bean. It's probably been our most popular lima butter bean. We probably have some back next year. We got this really cool feature on our website called Restock Notification. So if you go to a product page, such as the Christmas lima that we're out of stock on, you simply just put your email in there, and you know what? When we get it back in stock, it automatically sends you an email telling you that particular product is back in stock, and you can come back and purchase it. Very cool deal there, so check that out. So a little fun fact for you: in the 90s, it had to be pretty much the early 90s, I run across my first running butter bean. I was a grown man, and I was gardening, of course, and I picked them up at the local hardware store. They convinced me to try them. So we come home, and I knew I had to trellis them, but back then we really didn't know what we was doing. So we found a wild patch of bamboo. Me and the kids struck off down there with the machetes, and we cut us some bamboo, and we come back and we made teepees out of that bamboo to grow our running butter beans on. Well, lo and behold us, we didn't realize it, but our teepee was about 12, 13 foot high, and those butter beans grew all the way to the top. And I learned a good lesson then: don't trellis no further than you can reach. And it's a lesson that holds true today. As you can see behind me with the holding over netting back there, we do it just high enough so we can still pick it, because if you get above that, it's really not doing you a whole lot of good. Well, my preferred way of growing butter beans is the climbing. I'm growing that speckled one I got from Alabama this year. You want to plant these things about 6 to 8 inches apart. Make sure, absolutely sure, you put drip tape on it, because you got to keep this plant alive and vigorous throughout the growing season, and use a trellis. I use the steel T-post with the 59-inch Hortonova net here. We attach these things with some good zip ties. This works out real good for growing these climbing or running butter beans. So let us know in the comments below, which type do you prefer to grow? The trellising running type or the bush type? And let us know what you call them, butter beans or lima beans.
Mm-hmm.